YouTube, welcome back. We're canceling something for the very first time. Let's talk about why. I was planning on hosting a build contest using two-handed spears, and we were going to try to find out what do these items actually do in Last Epoch. We spent all of our time making fun of them, saying that they don't belong. There's no skill-specific synergies out there. There's technically using a spear along with lunge in order to proc Holy Trail Javelin. Or you can use a spear as a human to play Serpent Strike. But even though those two things, well, one of those things is really good, the other one of those things is really mediocre. We spent a couple hours today and a couple hours yesterday brainstorming what we could do with spears. What do I want to play for my own build contest that I'm encouraging other people to play as well? And I think we're at the conclusion now that this is the very first build contest that we're just going to cancel. I thought that there were things that we could do and maybe encourage other people to investigate that make spears worthwhile. Let's talk about why I think spears are lacking right now. Obviously, the big thing is like there's no specific skill synergy. If we just take a look at at a sentinel here, when I say skill synergy, I mean things like this. So sentinel has nodes that say attack and cast speed while holding a sword, attack and cast speed while holding an axe. That's great. Even down here, this node is taken less often, but increased damage, 12% increased damage per points, no joke. While wielding a mace, while wielding a scepter, that's fine. And then take a look at, something like a blade dancer. And when I say skill specific synergies, maybe nodes like this, weapons of choice. You're holding this, you're holding that, and like what combination of dual wielding allows you to have relevant stats here. And like even inside of a skill, if you take a look at Rive, there's like physical damage where wielding a sword, void damage where wielding an axe, and then there's a mace over here. Masteries, skills, even idols. There's just like nothing out there that really encourages you to use a spear. So what do spears do? Well, they're two-handed weapons. So if you're going to end up playing a two-handed character, maybe a Void Knight here, like Warpath deals more damage. This effect is doubled while using a two-handed weapon. So you could try to play Warpath along with a Trident to the Last Abyss. It has a ton of melee crit multi on it, and I think this would probably be okay. At face value, this kind of just competes with using a two-handed axe instead and doing something like what's this thing called? Something like a Apathy's Maw. It's got more flat damage on it. It's easier to get LP on an Apathy's Maw. And then Apathy's Maw is an axe, which also means that you get access to this node for attack and cast speed if you're interested in that. So it's a two-handed weapon. And sometimes there's a synergy for using a two-handed weapon, but there's also a lot of other two-handed weapons. So what else do spears have going for them right now? Well, let's take a look at the base types here first. So there's a couple low-level bases. We don't really care about those. I think the best base type is probably just this one here, the Trident. So Trident has, take a look at these numbers real quick. I guess we'll go like this. We'll go here. And let's have these two things pulled up side by side, because the most important comparison for a Trident is an Odachi. So a Trident has 80 with up to 180 melee crit multi, and Odachi has 70 with up to 170 crit multi, but Trident has a built-in attack speed penalty. It has a 0.94 attack speed, whereas Odachi is 1.02. For those of you who are interested in doing the math equations by yourself, these are basically more and less multipliers for your attack speed. So Odachi is just like, it's faster, and it happens to be a sword, which means you happen to have random synergies with classes and skills that reward you for using a sword, whereas spears don't exist. So a Trident's like a kind of thing that you can use if you don't have an Odachi that's good enough yet. So that's the first thing, talking about the Odachi. For the other base types, we're going to scroll past poison because unfortunately poison builds don't exist. I keep asking people if poison builds exist. No one tells me about anything. I keep asking. If you know of one, you better tell me about it. But I don't think poison builds exist. Unless they're minion builds. But let's keep scrolling down. We have the 3 high-level bases. So what do these offer to us if we want to use a spear? We have an Obsidian Lance, which has not the highest damage, and Armor Shred. Armor Shred's not garbage, but you can get Armor Shreds in lots of places. So that's not really something that's defining for us. Note that all 3 of these have attack speed penalties, 0.94. It's fine, but it is a slow base for all of these high-end bases. a Dragon Slayer glaive is neat. It has up to 7 melee critical strike chance. It's not garbage. It just doesn't have a home. So this could be something that you're interested in using in some particular build. I don't know what those builds are, but it has relevant stats on it. The fire res, it's weird, but it's there. And then the Deicide Lance, to me, I think the Deicide Lance is probably the most interesting thing. So it has this physical and elemental penetration on it, and it's not locked into being a melee build. So you could use this on Holy Trail Javelin as a item until you get your unique item, and it gives you elemental penetration because Holy Trail is split between fire and lightning elemental damage over time. And that's kind of interesting. You could even use Deicide Lance on a bleed build, and you get physical penetration there. And that's kind of interesting, but again, all the synergies that would reward you for going through the hassle of using this weird thing, they're just not there. So we talked about a couple builds. I'm going to run through these builds here. I guess let's not do that. Hold on. No. Let's back up for a second. We talked about the base types. Let's talk about the uniques. Somebody in Twitch chat, Amarathi, he's on YouTube as well. You should follow Amarathi. Amarathi put it this way. The unique spears, the reason that they feel so weird, and I think this really describes it appropriately, each of the unique spears in Last Epoch currently feels like here's one build that you can play with this unique spear, and if you're not playing this one build, what are you doing? And like Drow Sting, it's supposed to be for Serpent Strike, I guess. It doesn't really work with anything because poison's bad, and like it used to be an item, but you know. So Tyranni's Bident has pretty much one build built into it. You can play like Electrify, or you can play like a crit smite build along with it. It's fine. It's good. You can definitely use Tyranni's Bident in a build and feel very good about it, but it's just one build. Going down to the Lethal Concentration, it's got this one build built into it. I've technically used this in order to give random poison dealing wolves and poison dealing bears poison damage releases health along with his last line of text, but you're really just using it for that one line of text at the very bottom. Lethal Concentration, it's like it's not quite an item that I'm happy about using, and again it kind of has one build built into it here with the Skeleton Rogues. Lament of the Lost Refuge, I would love to use this for just the implicit modifier and ignore all of the other text, because the implicit is interesting. It has spell void damage on it, and it's got like more void damage than most staves have. And maybe you could use this along with Holy Trail Javelin or something. But again, it's spell void damage, and in Holy Trail Javelin, as long as we're talking about it, it has this note up here that gives you 15% more fire and 15% more lightning. And if you're dealing a bunch of void damage because you're forcing it to have void damage by putting void damage on your Lament of the Lost Refuge, then you don't get to take this node, and all of a sudden you're just dealing 60% less damage than other folks. I guess you just don't have the 60% more multiplier there. So you run into issues if you're trying to use your item in a cute way. Let's keep scrolling through these just real quick. Morditis' Reach. If there's a build out there that uses this, please tell me about it. I don't know of one. It's like like an S tier meme item in case you're trying to put together something. But again, Judicator, it's got like one build in it. Trident to the Last Abyss. It's got like 0.5 builds in it. It's not really something that you can use because there's no synergies. In fact, we even talked about this on the Epoch podcast recently, along with Lizard IRL, who shared his opinions of what this kind of item could be in the future. Just saying, like, the item itself doesn't really need a buff. It's a fine item. It just doesn't fit in any builds. It doesn't fit in any skills because there's no item-specific synergies out there for spears, which is the point of this rant. So the builds that we talked about that we might want to put in this build contest, we talked about a Blade Dancer build, maybe using a crit flurry setup. I know there's a couple people out there who have played like Onodachi Blade Dancer along with a Titan Heart. So you don't dual wield, you get the extra defenses from a Titan Heart, and you can be a little bit tankier like that while still having good damage. You could even try to proc Shadow Daggers off of Puncture, I suppose. We talked about a build with Void Knight, maybe Void Knight being like a lunge combo build, building a bunch of cooldown recovery speed, and then lunge, or like our lunge procs Javelin, and our Javelin procs Smite, and then our Smite deals a bunch of void damage. And this is cute for one particular reason, that the lightning procs over here do not convert their base damage into lightning, even though, their base damage into void, even though they do scale +2 void damage per point of vitality if you convert them. But having a ton of void damage from the Lament here would technically make sense. So I tried this out a little bit, felt squishy, felt a little bit fun, but I think it's just worse than the Electrify version of this particular character. We talked about playing a Void Knight Rive character, doubling all the stats on your Trident. I don't think it's supposed to double crit multi, but it does currently double your crit multi. We talked about a Void Knight using a Warpath setup. We talked about a Beastmaster build, and there might be something with this Beastmaster thing. Just like Beastmaster, human form, Serpent Strike, maybe your Frostbite, maybe your Bleed, and then you also have like Storm Orbs on Tornado, trying to make something work there. And the point of me showing you these builds is we really did turn both of our brain cells on in our head. We really did try to come up with something. And these all just look kind of mediocre, and I'm not sure that I want to encourage other people to use spears, which is weird because I encourage people to do lots of weird things in Last Epoch. I just don't think this is one that I want to ship out into the world. So we're going to go ahead and cancel this build contest. I'm going to keep playing some other builds. I've really been enjoying farming on my multi-shot character. We'll see if we can use some of the new Weaver's Will items. But this has been me complaining about spears. Hopefully we get a use for them someday, because all of the animations look awesome. I would love to use one. I just can't think of a good reason to do so.